Of course, the death of a pontiff triggers a huge transition for the Catholic Church. After Pope Francis is farewelled, the new head of the Church needs to be appointed in what is truly a deeply symbolic process.
We want to show you some extraordinary pictures which came to us from the Vatican on what was, of course, an extraordinary day. Within hours of Pope Benedict announcing that he was to resign, take a look at this. Lightning struck St. Peter's Basilica. You can see it again now in slow motion. Extraordinary. It happened just before 6 o'clock in the evening, local time.
Yeah, that's right, David. Extraordinary that Pope Francis died at the holiest time of the year for Catholics. And I think people here, they cannot see past that symbolism. It's an extraordinarily important moment for Catholics.
His surprise election in 2013 would mark a more radical break with the past than many expected.
With the health of Pope Francis deteriorating over recent years, conversations have already been had about who might lead the Catholic Church. A number of names have been put forward as possible candidates to become the next pontiff.
The Pope had been recovering, as you know, from double pneumonia, which left him hospitalized for 38 days. He was the first Jesuit Pope and the first Pope from Latin America, a reformer guiding the Catholic Church in a new direction. Leaders around the world are paying tribute. President Trump calling him a good man who loved the world.
Now on the day of his passing, I think the thing to remember is it's all about Easter. Just think about this. He passed away the day after Easter, and he gave a speech yesterday. Even though he couldn't speak, he had written a 20-minute speech which he handed to the Master of Ceremonies to read. And it's actually extremely poignant that he passed away just after this, his last message to the world, because in it, while he called for peace and an end to conflict in places like Ukraine and the Middle East and so on, he said, today is all about the Easter message. Jesus is alive and Jesus is real. He said, he's not in the tomb. We look for him in the tomb, but the tomb is empty. He is among us. He is in the face of others. He said, today is a day when light has won over darkness, when good has triumphed over evil, truth has won over falsehoods. That was the message that he gave, the last message to the world.
You know, and here we are the day after the holiest of holidays for Christians in the world, and Pope Francis slips away. Let's start with just the significance of the timing.
I think that obviously it's very significant. It comes the day after Easter, the day after Catholics and Christians around the world celebrate the resurrection of Jesus Christ. But I think more than anything, you saw the Pope on his last day at his happiest. Nothing made Pope Francis happier than being a pastor, than being among his people. It's one of the things that frustrated him, and that's why you saw increasingly during Holy Week these sort of special appearances that he would make at the Basilica, St. Peter's Basilica.
There was some plain chant earlier on. I don't know if you can hear that behind me. I think we're in for a long night of people just coming here to be still, to feel Pope Francis and to feel his presence, and to give thanks for a man who really was a world leader in the greatest sense. David?
There is so much of significance going on in the world that totally dominates the media cycle. You know, we're talking interest rate rises, war, politics. But believe me, it's all a part of a steady diet of distraction. Now, I say distraction because there are many other things going on that receive next to no public attention. But they really do have the potential to influence your life. Now, some of them involve our regular sparring partners on this program, people or groups like the World Economic Forum and the United Nations. Take, for example, the United Nations. The UN is warning that the world is headed towards a global recession and prolonged stagnation unless we quickly change the current policy course of monetary and fiscal tightening in advanced economies.
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it's my great honor to participate for the 8th time at this important meeting, even if only in a virtual way. I would like to express my high respect to His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum for having taken the initiative for creating such an important global platform for governments shaping the future. I also want to congratulate Dubai for having organized such a successful World Expo despite all the repercussions of the global pandemic. Last November, in partnership with His Excellency Mohammed Al-Gargawi, we brought together 60 top intellectual thinkers here in Dubai. Thank you to His Excellency for enabling this initiative to define a longer-term narrative to make the world more resilient, more inclusive, and more sustainable. With all the current issues on our agenda, we tend to forget that we are in the midst of the fourth industrial revolution, which accelerates global change in much more comprehensive and faster ways than the previous three revolutions. History is truly at a turning point. We do not yet know the full extent and the systemic and structural changes which will happen. However, we do know that global energy systems, food systems, and supply chains will be deeply affected. In times of crisis, the role of governments is more important and more relevant than ever. What is also needed is a summit like this one to go beyond crisis management and to look into constructive ways we can build our common future. Our futures are intrinsically connected to one another. We have to uphold our responsibility, which we have towards the next generation, and which we can only fulfill through collaboration on a national and on a global level. I wish you an impactful and successful meeting.
Those who do not adapt to this fourth industrial revolution will find themselves ousted and will lose. They will lose everything, including their freedom. In short, Klaus Schwab is threatening the head of government of the 20 most industrialized nations in the world to carry out the programmatic points of the Great Reset in their nation. This goes far beyond the pandemic. It is a global coup d'etat against which it is essential that people rise up and that the still healthy organ of state start an international juridical process. The threat is imminent and serious, since the World Economic Forum is capable of carrying out its subversive project, and those who govern nations have all become either enslaved or blackmailed by this international mafia. In the light of these statements, and those of others no less delusional than Yuval Noah Harari, Schwab's advisor, we understand how the pandemic first served as a trial balloon for imposing controls, coercive measures, curtailing individual freedoms, and increasing unemployment and poverty. The new step will have to be carried out by means of economic and energy crisis, which are instrumental to the establishment of a synarchic government in the hands of the global elite.